Enrique Mendizabal lives and works between London and Lima as an independent researcher and advisor to the think tanks and policy research networks. He has been working with and studying think tanks for over a decade. He founded On Think Tanks, and it has become one of the leading sources of information analysis and opinion relating to think tanks. Enrique was on a visit to CSTEP and we had a chat with them. Now over to Enrique. Okay, tell me something about yourself, Enrique.
Well, my name is Enrique. I'm Peruvian, and I have been studying think tanks for a bit over a decade.
What is On Think Tanks?
On Think Tanks is the leading global platform dedicated to the study and support of think tanks and policy research institutions.
Okay, I do understand, since I've been interacting with you for the past 2 years, you had a lot of exposure, meetings, collaborations with various think tanks. In your experience, do you think there's something unique about all think tanks across the globe? If so, what could they be?
This is a difficult question to answer because in every country and in every region you'll find different families of think tanks, different types of think tanks. I think there are some unique trends emerging, and maybe that's something I can tell you about.
Sure, definitely. Please go ahead.
So I'll divide it into 3 areas: research, communication, and management, that I think are crucial. So in terms of research, I think something that is emerging is think tanks trying new research methods. So not just traditional qualitative or quantitative research, but they are either combining these skills, also combining disciplines in their teams and in the methods they choose. And more interestingly, they are being much more open to new ideas and new tools that were not present in their countries. In terms of communications, one of the interesting trends is that think tanks are moving away from the traditional approach of developing a research report and then translating it into different outputs, and they're starting with digital, which is being called digital first. So they are beginning to notice and to realize that communications and engagement in digital spaces is the norm and is where their public and their future public want to be. And this is having an important effect in the way think tanks are engaging with their public. So that's another interesting trend, is that I see many more think tanks interested and willing to talk to others beyond just the policy-making world. Mm-hmm. And they realize that to have real influence and positive influence, it's not enough to just talk to the policymaker, but they have to talk to and engage with the public, inform the public, educate the public. When it comes to management, I think this is an interesting thing as well. And we're seeing think tanks realize that it's not enough to be just a senior researcher to be a good manager or be a good leader of a think tank. You have to be a good manager as well. These are not organizations that are simple or easy to manage. They are very complex. They have very complex business models, often depending on 1 or 2 funders, or it might be fickle, it might be foreign, and so you need very good management skills. And so think tanks are turning away, I think, from a view that all you needed was a staff full of PhDs, and now you need a staff that has professional managers or people who want to manage, who want to lead an organization. And finally, I think an interesting trend that is emerging, although not everywhere, but where you see it, you notice it. It's very clear. Is think tanks in which their staff are not just researchers and managers or communicators, but they're all of that together. Okay. So younger researchers who come in, or younger think tanks who come in, and they're expected to have research skills, management skills, and communication skills. And that is if you want, the beginnings of a great think tanker.
Okay, that's very well put. Now that you've spoken about uniqueness, could you tell if there could be some areas where the think tankers could come and bring in more policy impact? For example, let us say learning from the Latin American think tanks to the Indian think tanks or the African think tanks. So how do you think they could come on a common platform to exchange ideas or to share ideas? or to see what could have gone better or what went wrong?
So this is a challenge that many funders, especially global funders, face. They won't like their grantees to talk to each other across regions, and I think it's also something that think tanks themselves would be interested in. Getting to know think tankers from other regions, other than their own, even other countries. And it's sometimes harder to meet people within your own country. But there are a number of issues. One is that think tanks are political organizations. And they might not be partisan, but they're certainly political. So they've got a hard time dealing with their own politics. That's enough. If they also need to understand the politics of another country, that's extra work. And few think tanks are set up to engage globally. They're set up to engage domestically. So there's an institutional, if you want, an organizational barrier right at the beginning. So I find that one of the best ways of dealing with this barrier, this challenge, is to get think tanks, or the people within the think tanks, especially the people, to talk to their peers. So a head of communications at C-STEP to talk to a head of communications at a think tank in Africa or in Latin America or in Europe. You'll have a lot of things in common because you'll face similar challenges within your organization, even though your politics are different, even though your institutions are different. Heads of research and heads of research, heads of finance and heads of finance, heads of HR and heads of HR. These two rarely get to meet their peers, but I think that it's important that this is addressed. So the first thing is try to get peers from different organizations to talk to each other about their everyday work. And that's a very good way of bringing down barriers, of getting to know each other, and of becoming much more accustomed to sharing information. Sometimes hard to share information about your own problems, your own challenges. And the second one has to do with collaboration based on themes or policy issues. I think that once you have good relationships based on your day-to-day work, HR, management, research quality, etc., it's easier to start talking about themes. You know each other, you're more comfortable. But there are a number of initiatives, and we've been writing about this in On Think Tanks. There are a number of regional and bi-regional initiatives of meetings happening around the world. China, Africa. I was at an event recently, European think tanks with African think tanks. I was at an event also recently on global policy health, where they have think tanks from around the world. Latin America, China. There should be Latin America, Africa, Latin America, India. I know there is interest in these things. So there's a lot of interest among think tanks in different regions to try to talk to their peers in other parts of the world. The challenge is to find an issue that will bring them together to talk about something concrete. So beyond just let's get to know each other. Because the problem of that is that it's a one-off meeting and there's very little chance of a follow-up, and the think tanks know that. And so they don't want to invest the time in doing this.
That's very nicely put, and I hope people can work using this solution or suggested solution by you. I just have one more question. Everybody keeps asking everyone this question. What, in your opinion, is a think tank?
I thought you were going to ask me that. I can start by saying it depends.
Sure.
Who you're asking. The boundary of the definition is quite porous and quite flexible, and it's quite dynamic, so it changes over time. So let's start with the label. So I think it's basic, it's a label. Organizations choose to call themselves think tanks. Some organizations choose not to call themselves think tanks. The second is that a think tank, in my mind, should be using research. Not necessarily doing the fundamental research, but certainly using research and placing research at the core or at the center of their work. But taking research and adding a little bit of values and adding a little bit of engagement and efforts to build capacity and commitment to try to bring about change. Change in issues of public interest. So change in the practice of policy-making institutions, change in the beliefs of certain political actors, or change even in the way that the public engages with the state and society, etc. So research has to be present.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that the organization has to be full of PhDs, right? It can be excellent in drawing from sources of theoretical research and empirical research and creating interesting and convincing arguments
Right.
that are informed by research. And it has to want to take that argument, those ideas, and influence policy, or inform policy, and influence the public, or inform the public, and influence political actors, which could be the private sector, the media, and others, or inform them as well. So there has to be that need to inform, that need to influence issues of public interest.
Great, it's been lovely talking to you, Enrique. All the best, and I hope you come to CSTEP several times.
Thank you. No, it's been fantastic to spend this time in India.
Thank you.